It's been a long time coming, but I'm finally doing it. Making this YouTube channel has been a desire of mine for a number of years now, and I just always had an excuse not to do it. Like I didn't have enough time, or I didn't have the money, or I didn't have the setup, or I didn't know what my YouTube channel was going to be about, or I wasn't good at speaking in front of the camera. All these things prevented me for a long time from making the channel, and I've decided that I'm just tired of having that hold me back. So there's no more excuses to be made. I'm just going to follow through on what I wanted to do, and I'm going to make the channel. Welcome to SynTheoria. And first I want to start with explaining the origin and the purpose of the names of my projects. One being SynTheoria, which is the name of the YouTube channel, and the other being Soveriegnard, which is the name of the mission that I'm going to be presenting on the channel. So SynTheoria is a combination of the words syncretic and theoria. Syncretic meaning the combination or the integration of a variety of philosophies and schools of thought into one unified approach. And theoria is a Greek word that has two uses. Number one being the noun a thing looked at, and number two being the verb to contemplate. So together, those two meanings kind of suggest to me that what theoria is used for is to refer to things that are observed and pondered upon. And when you combine the two, syncretic and theoria, you get SynTheoria, which essentially means the contemplation of the world through a sort of prism of integrated perspectives. In simple terms, it just means to observe and think about the world with nuance and from many different points of view. Soveriegnard is the combination of the words sovereign and Asgard. As you can see, I like to combine words, and I like wordplay a lot because it's a good way of compressing information and sort of delivering a message in a more concise and impactful way. When I use the word sovereign, I'm specifically referring to the concept of self-sovereignty, which I believe means to have only God as your higher authority and no earthly entity. I believe that God is the only true sovereign, but as it pertains to here on earth, the individual should be the sole authority of their own domain. Asgard refers to the realm of the gods and the home of the honorable warriors of Norse mythology. It's a golden city built by a giant and served as the place where the gods would meet and make decisions about worldly affairs. It also served as one of the 9 realms connected to the great cosmic tree Yggdrasil. This cosmic tree, from my perspective, has many analogs, but one of the more known ones is the tree of life. Together, Sovereign and Asgard make Soveriegnard. Therefore, what Soveriegnard is a haven for the sovereign individual and the home of the protectors of self-sovereignty. And what I'm envisioning is that I'll be the so-called giant who builds the golden city wherein these protectors of self-sovereignty reside. So there you have it. That's the origin and the purpose of the names SynTheoria and Soveriegnard. SynTheoria serves as the philosophical framework underlying the overarching mission that I'm calling Soveriegnard. What I want this channel to be is two things. I want it to be an open forum, and I want it to be an educational platform. And what I mean by an open forum is I want it to be a place where people who seek truth, wisdom, and meaning come together to participate in discussing the topics I'm going to be presenting on this channel. I also want to invite criticism and critical analysis of my opinions and my beliefs so that I may grow wiser and more knowledgeable. Hopefully, in addition to gaining value from the channel being an open forum, I can provide value from it being an educational platform. I deeply feel like I was born to educate and mentor. The evidence that suggests this to me is the great satisfaction and immense fulfillment that I feel from just generally increasing or helping others increase their level of understanding in whatever it is they seek to understand. Soveriegnard embodies the two functions of this channel in that my mission to teach and evolve is what I intend for Soveriegnard to do for society. I intend for Soveriegnard to teach society how to evolve from what I believe is a toxic one to a healthy one. In order for humans to continue to live successfully, I think it's necessary for our societies to evolve. And the way that Soveriegnard aims to deliver this message and address the problems that I see present in the average modern lifestyle is by taking a multifaceted syncretic approach in detailing how the average modern lifestyle is not only doing harm physically, but also mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I do this by going back to first principles, which ties into this channel being an educational platform, in that I take you, the listener, down the deep rabbit holes to explain and describe how the different aspects of our society came to be and why they still stand today. And then from those investigations, I plan to extract the information necessary to create healthy alternatives and then plug those alternatives into my Soveriegnard model. The idea is to create a health-conducive context within which healthy individuals can arise. The ultimate goal of Soveriegnard is to rediscover that love is the meaning of life. And I know that sounds corny, I know it sounds cheesy, but so we're born into this world through seemingly no choice of our own, and we suffer through life. There is a necessary suffering that comes with existence. However, we have this desire to continue life, and we have a survival instinct. And these two things suggest to me that there is something about life that makes it worth living. And what I believe is the answer to the question, what makes life worth living, is precisely love. Now, this is an extremely deep topic, so I'll be making a separate video explaining why I believe love is the meaning of life and how Soveriegnard seeks to help humanity rediscover that. But for now, let's continue to the next section, which is aiming up again. I'd like to start off by addressing the fact that because I was born and raised in the West, I can speak with most insight specifically about the average modern Western lifestyle. And though I believe that many of the aspects of the modern Western lifestyle are toxic meaning counterproductive to human health, I don't believe it's just the West that has these toxic traits. I believe it's pretty much everywhere else. Even still, I have gratitude, respect, and admiration for the successes of the West. Winston Churchill, I believe it was Winston Churchill that once said that democracy was the worst form of government, except for all those other governments that have been tried from time to time. And this is how I feel about the West. I think that the West has been the best that humanity has been able to do thus far, but the values that brought upon the success of the West, I believe those values have shifted, and the values that we are operating with now are ones that hold a downward trajectory. So that brings me to the next topic I want to discuss, which is the idea of virtuous archers. And what I mean by virtuous archers are people who are aiming up, those of us who are aiming towards increasing the level of love that humans experience. And that entails many things, but like I've said before, that's a whole separate video in and of itself. For now, we can simply use that as our base assumption. Virtuous archers are those who seek to increase the level of love that humans experience. And so those are the ones who are aiming up. Whereas the ones who are aiming down, we can call, degenerate archers or sinful archers. These degenerate, sinful archers are those who seek to destroy, spread hatred, and cause destructive conflict as opposed to constructive conflict. Examples of virtuous archers are, in my opinion, genuine Bitcoiners. So these are like the Bitcoin maximalists. I believe they're virtuous in their aim because they represent uncompromising truth and transparency. Bitcoin itself is an embodiment of accuracy, clarity, correctness, permanence, but it's also an embodiment of self-sovereignty and responsibility. These genuine Bitcoiners recognize the importance of the collective impact that individuals in the aggregate have on a network of participants, and not just financial ones, but any kind of network. Money itself is something that's so much more significant than just how much you can buy. Its influence and significance seeps into every aspect of human life. Like, for example, it alters the way that we perceive value. That whole topic is just another rabbit hole in and of itself. So that's another video I'll be making separate to this one. Another example of a virtuous archer is ARC, which is the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. I actually learned about this through Jordan Peterson. He came out with a video explaining what it was and what their aim was. They have an aim that's pretty similar to mine. They seek to revivify the values that they and I believe were responsible for the success of the West. I hope to get aboard the Ark one day and meet this network of influential and knowledgeable people, and hopefully my interactions with them will enhance my mission to spread love and prosperity. Another virtuous archer is Acton Academy. Acton Academy is a new kind of educational institution that has implemented the successful educational patterns that unschoolers and homeschoolers would employ with their children when they decided to take them out of the conventional school system. In the Acton model, they focus on self-directed project-based learning, where instead of teachers, what they have are guides who employ the Syncretic method to engender in every student the kind of independent thinking that would allow them to direct their own education. And instead of grades, what they have are portfolios that serve as a collection of all the projects they've completed over the course of their education in order to serve as their measure of credibility. This is, in a very good way, a radical and innovative educational model, which actually I was designing myself about 10 years ago, much prior to my discovery of Acton Academy. But it's refreshing to see that they've been so successful with this model. So I plan to learn a lot from their experience, from their success stories, their mistakes, and ideally plug in those lessons into my community model. The last example I have here of a virtuous archer is the farm at Okefenokee. And I actually learned about these people through Robert Breedlove's YouTube channel, the What is Money Show. And what they are is a self-sustaining off-grid community who practice permacultural regenerative farming. And they also educate their residents about their self-sustaining practices. You can basically buy a lot and build a house on their lot, and then receive the benefit of the resources that they provide on the land. And they're doing a lot of what Soveriegnard aims to do. So I plan to learn a lot from them as well. All of these virtuous archers share some of the philosophical underpinnings of Soveriegnard. Soveriegnard, then, in short, is a comprehensive solution to all of these problems, to which these virtuous archers are contributing their solutions. I had a vision back in 2014 about a situation in which these four major problems could realistically be solved. And the solution took the form of what I now call Soveriegnard, which is a community model that would serve as a proof of concept that a small-scale, self-sufficient, customizable, and iterable community could serve as the standard of human living moving forward. Why small scale? Well, small scale provides accessibility, speed, and impact. What does this mean? The smallness and scale means that all necessary resources, including infrastructural and political, are within reach. They're closer to the people who would need them. Speed is also increased in terms of moving energy, including materials, information, human capital. Because the scale is so small, these things move from point A to point B in much less time and with much less friction. Not only does energy move faster, but social change manifests faster as well. Small equals efficient. There is more impact to every action in a small scale community. Where there are less people, the effects of every person's actions are simply felt more strongly. Because of this, people feel not only their worth more tangibly, but the worth of everyone else. And that results in a general increase of everyone's sense of meaning and life satisfaction. Compare this to the sense of insignificance that we naturally come to feel from being just another cog in the machine of a million parts. In Stoicism, there's this aspect of focusing your energy on what's within your realm of control, as opposed to wasting it by paying attention to what's outside of it. Similar to Stoicism, Soveriegnard seeks to take matters into its own hands by becoming self-sufficient. This way it can meet the needs of its community members without relying on outside entities. This also makes Soveriegnard a wealth generator, since it's not depleting resources from outside entities and instead producing its own wealth so that it may have the opportunity to provide value outside of itself. Soveriegnard also has to be customizable, since there are many variables at play when establishing this community model. So the community focus depends on the members within it. The fundamental goal of each community to create health-conducive context, that remains the same, but every community can choose to invest more in a certain aspect of the community than others. Like, for example, one community may want to focus on innovating in agriculture. Another may decide that their focus is on advancing energy harnessing technology. A third may want to invest in developing their architectural engineering, while another will choose to experiment with their governance practices in order to optimize the process by which the health conducive context is created. My main focus with Soveriegnard is to create that foundational template. This means that the problems I have to solve are making remote land energy rich and self-sustaining, creating an amenity rich off-grid community where the comfort rivals the comfort of city life, finding a viable incentive for keeping the community under 200 members, and increasing the amount of available land for the model. It's also location dependent because every place carries its own inherent logic of sustainability. The design of the community changes depending on where it's located on Earth. Once you understand the context of that parcel of land, the design of the community starts to reveal itself. It also has to be invitational in that the community has to invite its members and not try to recruit or proselytize. The community has to open its doors to people seeking common goals instead of trying to convince people that they should have these goals. Lastly, the legal boundaries have to be respected. You have to respect the law. Because this project aims to spread across all borders, the community should take into account the laws of the jurisdictions within which it's going to establish itself. It must be iterable, and it being customizable serves that iterability goal. I want this community model to spread across the world and for it to replicate indefinitely. It's critical that I make this clarification because of the common tendency for people to misunderstand where I'm coming from and what it is I'm actually proposing. So I'll start by stating what I'm not proposing. I'm not proposing communism, as communism is anti-capitalist, whereas I'm pro-capitalist. It's anti-religion when I'm pro-religion. It's anti-property and I'm pro-property, and it emphasizes collectivism, whereas I'm pro-individualism. I'm also not pushing utopianism, as I'm keenly aware of the inevitable imperfections of any human system. And that understanding, that recognition is reflected by the very adaptability of the model itself. That's why Soveriegnard is customizable, because it's meant to correct for any errors that it makes over time. I'm also not pushing any form of neo-Marxism or postmodernism, because wherever these are anti, I'm pro, and where they're pro, I'm anti. I'm definitely not advocating for population control, because I believe it's terribly wrong to tell others whether they can or can't have children. And I know that the limit on the population size within the model may seem like a form of population control, but the way I see it, it's the opposite, because that limit is meant to serve as an incentive for the community to replicate itself and spread. And ultimately, what would end up happening is the creation of a network of self-sustaining, health-conducive, and value-generating communities who would all be able to optimally deal with the consequences of a successful and flourishing human race. I think this next thing is the most important thing to clarify, and it's that this is not a new age hippie countercultural movement. I know that a lot of things that I talk about may seem like they spawn from these philosophies, but they don't. However, it would take too much time to explain how my values and beliefs differ from that of the new age hippie counterculturalists. So this is yet another topic on which I'm going to have to make a separate video in order to uncover all the nuance. Lastly, I want to clarify that this is not a commune. Instead, what it is an intentional community. But that doesn't satisfy me, because I feel like what I'm doing is that old Edward Bernays trick where he changes the word propaganda to public relations, and then all of a sudden it's a new thing when actually it's not. I don't want to do this, but I just feel like I haven't found the proper label for what it is that I am proposing that would differentiate it from what I'm not proposing. So I think that for this specific purpose, I created this YouTube channel, was in order to unpack all the nuance of my project, since there was so much information that I couldn't concisely fit into one conversation. Instead, what I'm doing now is creating a library of videos that goes in depth into every aspect of my project, and explains what it is and what it isn't. For the time being, what I can say about it without extending this introduction video too long is that it's decentralized in that there is no concentration of power. It's open source because there's a focus on transparency, non-obfuscation, and easy access to resources and opportunities. It's capitalistic because I believe the market knows best. It's experimental and customizable because it needs to be adaptable. And it's holistic because it takes into account the systemic effects of all of its institutions and policies. Moving on to the next section of the video, human health as a microcosm of environmental health. This means that there is an interdependence between humans and their environment, and that the health of each necessarily depends on the other. This brings me back to an idea in Stoicism where one's attention should be directed towards one's own locus of control. Soveriegnard then serves as my way of focusing on the human actions I can take to create the conditions that would help give rise to healthy humans, which would perpetuate the health of the environment, and by extension perpetuate this whole cycle of healthy humans, healthy environment. Another thing I'd like to clarify is that I'm not a climate change zealot. And I use the word zealot because I feel like these climate change activists are religiously militant in their supposed protection of the earth and the environment. Now, that's not to say that I believe that we should ignore and neglect our duty to tend to the earth. It's the eschatological presumptions that I have a problem with. All the doomsaying and the fear-mongering that I feel is just frankly ridiculous. But I also want to clarify that what I mean by the word environment is so much more than just the geological earth. What I mean by environment is the people you grow up around, the people you're surrounded by, the social institutions which you form a part of, the infrastructure that you experience and use every day, the art that you're exposed to, the culture and its traditions, the philosophies that manifest themselves in your society, and then the worldview that all of that creates. This is what I mean by the word environment. I think that the word environment has been sort of co-opted in some strange way by the climate change activists to refer to anything related to climate change activism. Unlike these climate change zealots, I believe in the wealth-producing power of industrialization. But there is a flip side to the coin, because although industrialization did create massive wealth through the exponential increase in productivity and ultimately liberated billions from scarcity, in the process, it created a lot of compartmentalization and specialization, and it fractured our understanding of the relationships between function and meaning and of productivity and purpose. So much so that now we feel as though we're just simply cogs in a machine focused on production for production's sake. Therefore, Soveriegnard is a new settlement classification I'm labeling HDSC, which stands for Holistically Designed Self-Sustaining Community. And one of its main challenges is to not abolish industrialization, but internalize its power without inheriting its pathology. That's it for my introductory video. If you found any of this interesting and you'd like to support, then consider liking, subscribing to the YouTube channel, or supporting me by joining my Skool, subscribing to any of my blogs, hiring me for any of the services that I offer, making a purchase for any of the digital products that I offer, or making a donation to any of the projects that I'm currently trying to fund. You can find all relevant links down in the description, and I hope to see you again soon.